The repair dock on Station 7 smelled like metal and ozone. Jack Thompson walked through the crowded hallway, his heavy boots making loud thuds against the metal floor. Every step he took reminded him that he wasn't on Earth anymore. The artificial gravity was set too low for his liking, making him feel like he might float away if he wasn't careful. The station's thin air made most humans carry portable breathing units, but Jack had gotten used to it over the past 3 years. Still, his powerful chest needed to work harder here, taking deeper breaths than the aliens around him. That was life for a human in space, always adjusting, always adapting. As he walked, the aliens around him moved out of his way. Some tried to be subtle about it, while others just openly stared. Jack couldn't blame them. To their eyes, he was a monster from a death world, a planet with crushing gravity, deadly predators, and extreme weather. His muscular frame, built dense and strong from Earth's powerful gravity, made him look like a warrior next to their slim bodies. The job board floated in front of his eyes, projected by his neural interface. Most of the postings were standard stuff: cargo loading, hull repairs, engine tune-ups. But one posting caught his attention, making him stop in the middle of the walkway. A few aliens bumped into him, squeaked in surprise, and quickly moved away. "Experienced mechanic needed," Jack read out loud, his voice deep and rough compared to the musical tones of most alien speech. "High-performance vessel modifications. Must be capable of working in variable gravity conditions. High pay. Discretion required." The payment number made his eyes widen. It was enough credits to buy a small ship of his own. But what really got his attention was the image attached to the posting. A Meridian-class racing vessel. These ships were famous across the galaxy, the fastest things ever built by the advanced Aetherian species. Jack had only seen them in broadcasts of the galactic Grand Prix races. He reached out and touched the holographic posting, bringing up more details. The ship's specifications scrolled past his eyes, and he felt his heart beat faster. Everything about it was perfect. The curved hull designed to slip through space like a knife, the massive engines that could push it to speeds that made physicists nervous, and the complex systems that kept it from tearing itself apart. But something wasn't right. The power output readings were too low for a ship like this. The safety margins were too wide. Someone had built this beautiful machine and then put a leash on it. Jack walked over to a viewport and looked out at the repair dock. There she was, sitting in Bay 17. A Meridian-class ship with deep blue paint that seemed to swallow the light. Even at rest, she looked fast. His fingers itched to get inside her engine room, to see what was holding her back. He remembered his grandfather's workshop back on Earth, where he had learned to fix everything from ancient combustion engines to modern fusion drives. "Machines speak to us," his grandfather used to say, hands black with engine grease. "Most folks just don't know how to listen." Jack sent his application with a single thought through his neural interface. Within seconds, a response came back: "Interview accepted. Proceed to Bay 17." As he walked toward the ship, his mind was already racing with possibilities. Earth's mechanics had a special reputation in the galaxy. While alien engineers followed their technical manuals like holy books, humans had learned their craft the hard way, by breaking things, fixing them, and finding new ways to make them better. Jack cracked his knuckles as he approached the ship. The sound echoed in the large bay, making a few nearby maintenance drones scatter. He smiled, remembering another thing his grandfather used to say: "The best mechanics don't just fix machines, they make them sing." It was time to see what kind of song this ship wanted to sing. The door to Bay 17 opened with a soft hiss. Jack walked into the large space, his boots echoing against the metal floor. The Meridian-class ship looked even more impressive up close. Its hull curved like flowing water, frozen in metal and composite materials. The landing lights reflected off its surface, creating patterns that seemed to move as he walked closer. A movement caught his eye. At first, Jack thought it was just another reflection, but then the ship's owner stepped into view. The alien was tall, nearly 7 feet in height, with skin that looked like polished mirror glass. It moved with the natural grace that all Aetherians had, seeming to float rather than walk across the bay floor. "You are the human mechanic?" the alien asked. Its voice had a musical quality, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "I am Blue. This is my vessel." Jack nodded, keeping his movements slow and controlled. He had learned early on that sudden movements made most aliens nervous. "Jack Thompson," he said, "I saw your posting about needing modifications." Blue's skin rippled with colors, a way Aetherians showed their emotions. Right now, the colors suggested curiosity mixed with concern. "Your application mentioned experience with high-performance engines, yet I see no racing certificates in your file." "Don't need certificates to understand machines," Jack replied, walking around the ship's hull. His trained eye caught dozens of small details, wear patterns in the paint, slight variations in the panel alignments, tiny signs that told him the ship's story. "Been working on engines since I could walk. Started with ground vehicles on Earth, moved up to atmospheric craft, then spacecraft." The alien's antenna twitched, another sign of curiosity. "Earth." Blue said the word carefully, like it might bite. "The Deathworld. Is it true what they say about your planet? That even the air can kill?" Jack chuckled. "Sometimes. We call it weather. But that's what makes us good at this kind of work. When you grow up in a place where everything's trying to kill you, you learn to fix things fast and fix them right." He stopped at the ship's main engine port, studying the complex patterns of the thrust vectoring system. "Your species has been building these ships for centuries. They're beautiful machines, but you're too careful with them. Too worried about staying inside the safe zone." Blue moved closer, the alien's height making it tower over Jack. But the human didn't feel intimidated. He'd worked with enough aliens to know that size rarely matched up with strength, and his Earth-grown muscles could probably lift 3 Aetherians without strain. "The safe zone exists for a reason," Blue said. "Last racing season, 2 ships were destroyed when their pilots pushed too hard. 1 pilot did not survive." Jack turned to face the alien. "Those pilots didn't understand their machines. They just pushed until something broke. That's not what I do." He reached out and placed his hand on the ship's hull, feeling the slight vibration from the dormant systems. "I listen to what the machine needs. Then I give it what it wants." Blue's skin shifted to a deep purple, a color of deep thought among Aetherians. "Your species has a reputation in the racing circuits. Humans understand something about machines that most others don't. You feel them. We call it mechanical intuition," Jack explained. "Back on Earth, we learned everything the hard way. Trial and error. Breaking things and fixing them better than they were before. When you grow up that way, you develop a sense for how machines work, not just by the numbers, but by feel." The alien was silent for a long moment, colors shifting across its reflective skin. Finally, Blue asked, "And what does my ship tell you?" Jack smiled. "She's telling me she wants to run. Really run, not just cruise along inside the safety margins. The question is, are you willing to let her?" Blue's skin flashed with bright colors, excitement, maybe fear, maybe both. "Show me," the alien said. "Show me what a Deathworlder can do with a ship built for the stars." Jack grinned as he pulled his toolkit from his shoulder. "First, we need to look at your engine room." And then, he cracked his knuckles, making Blue's antenna twitch at the sound. "We're going to have a long talk about what safety margins really mean." The engine room of Blue's ship was spotless. Too spotless, Jack thought as he walked around the main power core. Everything was organized in perfect lines, every tool placed exactly where the manual said it should be. The engine hummed with a steady, even tone that told him it was running exactly at factory specifications. And that was the problem. "Look at this," Jack said, pointing to the antimatter injection system. His large hand seemed out of place among the delicate Aetherian technology. "Everything's set to baseline. It's like having a racing car and never taking it out of first gear. Blue hovered nearby, the alien skin reflecting the blue glow from the power core. Those are the manufacturer's recommended settings. The Galactic Racing Commission requires all ships to maintain standard safety protocols. Jack pulled up the engine diagnostics on the main screen. Numbers and graphs floated in the air, showing power curves and efficiency ratings. To most mechanics, it would look perfect. But Jack saw something different. He saw potential going to waste. See these governors? He pointed to several small devices attached to the main power lines. And these limiters. They're like putting chains on a runner's legs. Sure, it's safer, but you're never going to win a race that way. The alien's antenna twitched nervously. Those are required safety equipment. All racing vessels must have them installed. A slow grin spread across Jack's face. The rules say they have to be installed. They don't say anything about how they have to be calibrated. He opened his toolkit and pulled out a diagnostic scanner of his own design. On Earth, we learned pretty quick that rules are guidelines, not walls. He connected his scanner to the nearest power junction. The device's screen lit up with readings that made Blue's skin flash with alarm colors. Those numbers, they're far beyond safe levels. Safe is relative, Jack said, moving deeper into the engine room. These systems were designed by people who never lived on a world where the air could freeze solid or burn you alive. They don't understand how far you can really push things if you know what you're doing. He spent the next hour showing Blue what he'd found. The antimatter injection system was running at only 60% of its true capacity. The inertial dampeners had safety margins wide enough to protect a ship 3 times their size. Even the fuel mixture was set to the most conservative blend possible. Your ship isn't just held back, Jack explained, bringing up more detailed scans. It's scared. The computer systems are programmed to back off at the first sign of strain. But machines are like muscles. They get stronger when you push them. Blue moved closer to study the readings. And you can change this, without violating racing regulations. Jack nodded. Every system has a sweet spot, a perfect balance between maximum power and catastrophic failure. Most engineers stay far away from that line because they're afraid of crossing it. But humans, he patted the engine housing. We've spent our whole history dancing on that line. He pulled up the ship's design specifications and began making notes. I can modify the injection timing to squeeze more power out of each antimatter pulse. Recalibrate the dampeners to handle higher G-forces. Install a custom fuel mixer that'll let you adjust the blend on the fly. Blue's skin had taken on a silvery sheen, a sign of intense interest among Etherians. How long would these modifications take? A week, Jack said, already planning the work in his head. Maybe less if I can work without interruption. The tricky part won't be making the changes. It'll be making them look like they're still within regulation specs. The alien was quiet for a moment, colors shifting across its reflective surface. The next race is in 10 days, Blue finally said. If what you're suggesting works. It'll work, Jack interrupted, his confidence born from years of pushing machines beyond their limits and bringing them back safely. The question is, are you ready to fly a ship that doesn't hold itself back? Because once I make these changes, you're going to feel what this baby can really do. Blue's skin flashed with brilliant colors, the Aetherian equivalent of an excited grin. Show me everything. Jack cracked his knuckles and reached for his tools. It was time to teach this alien ship how to sing a different kind of song, a human song, full of power and speed, and the kind of performance that made safety inspectors wake up screaming. Let's get started, he said, and dove into the work that would transform this well-behaved Aetherian vessel into something that would make the galaxy hold its breath. Over the next 7 days, Jack worked in a way that amazed even the station's maintenance drones. Humans were known for their endurance, a trait evolved from their deadly homeworld. But Jack pushed beyond even those limits. He worked 18-hour shifts, stopping only when his hands started to shake from exhaustion. The engine room became his world. Tools and parts floated in zero gravity around him as he methodically transformed the ship's systems. Blue watched from nearby, the alien skin shifting through shades of wonder and concern as Jack made changes that no Aetherian engineer would dare attempt. The antimatter injection system is first, Jack explained on the second day, his hands deep in the engine's core. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool air. See these timing crystals? They're set to fire in sequence, but if we adjust them just right. He made a minute adjustment, and the engine's hum changed to a deeper note. Now they're firing in a cascade pattern. 30% more power, saying fuel consumption. By the third day, he had moved on to the inertial dampeners. These are too conservative, he said, rewiring entire sections. They're designed to keep the G-forces at comfortable levels for most species. But humans? We can handle more. Much more. Blue's antenna twitched. Won't that make the ship dangerous for me to pilot? Jack shook his head, wiping grease from his hands. That's why I'm installing this. He held up a small device of his own design. I call it the sweet spot detector. It'll tell you exactly how hard you can push before things get dangerous. It's like having a sixth sense for the ship's limits. The fourth and fifth days were spent on the fuel mixture system. Jack installed custom injectors that could adjust the antimatter-matter ratio on the fly. Most ships use a fixed mix, he explained, but different situations need different ratios. In a straight run, you want maximum power. In a tight turn, you need more control. This system lets you adapt instantly. The sixth day was the hardest. Jack had to make all his modifications look legal on paper. He spent hours programming false readings into the ship's computers, making sure that any racing inspector would see exactly what they expected to see. This is the clever part, he told Blue, showing complex lines of code. The ship will report standard readings to the racing authorities, but you'll see the real numbers on your pilot display. It's not lying. It's just being selective about who gets to see the truth. On the seventh day, Jack made the final adjustments. His hands were steadied, despite his exhaustion, each movement precise and careful. The engine room no longer looked like the pristine Aetherian workspace it had been. Now it had a touch of human engineering, not messy, but more alive somehow, as if the machinery itself was breathing. One last thing, Jack said, connecting a small black box to the main control system. This is important. If anything goes wrong, if any system starts to approach true failure, this will automatically bring everything back to standard settings. It's our safety net. Blue moved closer, skin reflecting the engine's pulsing glow. You've changed everything, yet the ship still passes all standard inspections. How is this possible? Jack smiled tiredly. Humans have a saying. The best modifications are the ones nobody can prove exist. Everything I've done is technically within the rules. We're just interpreting those rules more creatively than most. He stepped back and looked at his work. The engine thrummed with a new sound now, still smooth, but with an undertone of barely contained power. It reminded him of the big cats from Earth, purring on the surface but ready to unleash explosive speed at any moment. She's ready, Jack said, feeling pride mix with exhaustion in his chest. Tomorrow we test her, but first, he yawned, his jaw cracking. First, I need to sleep for about 12 hours. Blue's skin rippled with concerned colors. You've pushed yourself as hard as you're pushing this ship. Jack laughed. That's the human way. We don't just modify machines, we put everything we are into them. Tomorrow, you'll see what that means. As he left the engine room, Jack patted the wall affectionately. The ship seemed to pulse under his touch, like it was eager to show what it could do. Tomorrow would be interesting, and if he'd done his job right, it would redefine what everyone thought a Meridian-class vessel could do. But first, he needed rest. Even Deathworlders had their limits. The next morning, Station 7's test flight zone was clear of all traffic. Jack sat in the engineer's station behind Blue's pilot seat, his eyes moving between multiple holographic displays. The ship hummed around them, but it wasn't the polite purr of a standard Meridian-class vessel anymore. Now it was the eager growl of a predator waiting to be unleashed. "Running final system checks," Jack said, his fingers dancing over the controls. "Antimatter containment at optimal levels. New fuel mixture loaded. Inertial dampeners." He grinned, ready to show us what they can really do. Blue's skin flickered with nervous colors as the alien studied the readouts. "These power levels, they're far beyond anything I've seen before. Are you certain about this? Look at this gauge here." Jack pointed to a special display he'd installed. "This shows your sweet spot, the perfect balance between maximum performance and system stability. Stay in the green, and you're safe. Yellow means you're pushing it. Red means back off immediately." The station's traffic control crackled over the comm system. "Meridian vessel Azure Dream, you are cleared for test flight. Please maintain standard safety protocols." Jack couldn't help but smile at that last part. If they only knew. "Ready when you are, Blue." Blue's long fingers wrapped around the control surfaces, starting main engine sequence. The ship's new engine note deepened, vibrating through the hull in a way that made Jack's teeth tingle. He watched the power readings climb, already higher than the ship had ever gone before, and they weren't even moving yet. "Take us out slow," Jack advised. "Get a feel for how she responds now." Blue guided the ship out of the station's massive doors. The test zone spread before them, a carefully monitored section of space, filled with sensor buoys and tracking stations, perfect for seeing what their modified ship could really do. "All systems nominal," Jack reported. "You've got about 40% more power available than before. Try a straight run first. Get used to the acceleration." Blue's skin shimmered with excitement. The alien pushed the throttle forward, and the ship leaped like a striking snake. Jack felt himself pressed back into his seat, despite the enhanced inertial dampeners. The stars outside became streaks of light. "By the void," Blue exclaimed, the alien's musical voice hitting notes Jack hadn't heard before. "The acceleration, it's incredible." Jack checked his readings. "You're still only at 70% power. Want to see what she can really do?" Blue's skin flashed bright colors of excitement. "Show me." "Push the throttle all the way forward, but watch that sweet spot indicator. The moment it hits yellow, back off a little." The ship screamed forward with acceleration that would have torn apart a standard Meridian-class vessel. Jack felt the G-forces trying to crush him despite the dampeners, but this was nothing compared to Earth's gravity. He watched the power readings climb higher and higher, pushing towards levels that would make any racing inspector faint. "Now for the real test," Jack said, his voice tight against the acceleration. "See that asteroid field ahead? Take us through it." Blue's antenna twitched. "At this speed, trust the ship," Jack said. "And trust yourself. She'll respond faster now. Think about where you want to go, and she'll take you there." The asteroid field approached at terrifying speed. Blue's hands moved across the controls, and the ship danced. It slipped between rocks with mere meters to spare, each turn tighter than should have been possible. The modified engines roared and purred, the new fuel mixture giving them power and control that no standard ship could match. Jack watched his readings with pride. Everything was performing perfectly, pushing the limits but never quite crossing them. The sweet spot detector stayed firmly in the green, proving that his modifications were doing exactly what they should. As they emerged from the asteroid field, Blue's skin was glowing with colors Jack had never seen before. This is beyond anything I imagined possible." "This is just the beginning," Jack said, already thinking about the upcoming race. "Wait until you see what she can do when you really need her to perform." He patted his console affectionately. The ship had proven herself better than even he had hoped. Now it was time to show the galaxy what happened when human engineering met Aetherian technology. The real test would come at the race, And Jack couldn't wait to see the looks on everyone's faces when this ship showed them what impossible really meant. Race day at the Galactic Grand Prix brought crowds from across the galaxy. The massive space station hosting the event was packed with spectators eager to watch the most prestigious racing competition in 5 sectors. Holographic displays showed the 20 competing ships as they moved into their starting positions. Jack stood in the maintenance bay, running final checks on Blue's ship. The pre-race inspection had gone smoothly, his modifications appearing completely legal to the racing officials. Now he watched the diagnostic readings with the focus of a predator stalking its prey. Remember, he told Blue through their private comm channel, the sweet spot detector is your best friend out there. Push it as hard as you want, but the moment it hits red, pull back immediately. Blue finished, the alien's voice steady despite the pressure. I remember. The other racers had largely ignored Blue during the pre-race meetings. After all, this was just another Meridian-class ship, and not even the newest model. Their ships were newer, more expensive, loaded with the latest approved technology. Some pilots had even smirked when they saw Blue's older vessel. Jack smiled. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Racers, take your positions. The announcer's voice boomed through the station. The crowds roared as the ships lined up at the starting gate, a massive energy field that stretched across space like a curtain of light. All systems are green, Jack reported, watching his displays. Engine temperature perfect. Fuel mixture optimized for launch. You've got more power available than any ship out there. They just don't know it yet. The starting countdown began. 10 seconds. Jack felt his heart pounding, remembering all the hours of work, all the careful modifications, every tiny adjustment that had turned this standard racing ship into something extraordinary. 5 seconds. He saw the other ships powering up their engines, standard energy signatures flaring on his sensors. 3 seconds. Blue's ship hummed with barely contained power, like a living thing eager to be unleashed. Race start in 3, 2, 1. Go. The energy field dropped, and 20 ships launched forward into space. But one ship, one modified, transformed, human-engineered ship, moved differently than the rest. Blue's vessel didn't just accelerate. It leaped forward like a bullet from an ancient Earth gun. Sweet mother off. One of the racing officials gasped, watching the sensor readings. Blue's ship had already taken the lead, moving with acceleration that seemed impossible for its class. The first turn approached, a tight curve around a massive asteroid. The other pilots began their standard racing lines, following the approved techniques taught in racing school. Blue took a different approach, using Jack's modified inertial dampeners to cut inside at speeds that should have torn the ship apart. Power curve is perfect, Jack reported, watching his readings. You've got more if you need it. Show them what she can really do. Through the screens, Jack watched as Blue's ship danced through the course. The modified engines sang their strange new song as the ship threaded between obstacles, taking turns that made the announcers sputter in disbelief. The other racers pushed their ships harder, trying to catch up, but they were limited by their safety protocols and standard configurations. They're trying to analyze your flight pattern, Jack warned, seeing the sensor sweeps from the other ships. Mix it up. Don't let them predict you. Blue understood. The alien pilot started using techniques that had never been seen in professional racing, moves that combined Aetherian precision with human audacity. The ship rolled and dove, using the modified fuel mixture system to adjust power on the fly, finding paths through space that other pilots wouldn't even consider possible. Halfway through the race, the gap was undeniable. Blue's ship had a lead that seemed to defy physics. The announcer's voice had gone from professional to excited to nearly hysterical as they tried to explain what they were seeing. How is this possible? One commentator demanded. That ship's specifications are within standard limits. Jack grinned in his maintenance bay. Technically true, he muttered to himself. The best kind of true. As Blue's ship approached the final stretch, Jack watched the sweet spot detector with pride. It had stayed in the green throughout the race, proving that his modifications weren't just powerful, they were reliable. This wasn't just a victory for Blue. It was a victory for human engineering, for the art of pushing boundaries while knowing exactly where the real limits lay. The finish line approached, and Jack knew that racing would never be the same after today. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you combined Aetherian technology with human ingenuity. And this was just the beginning. The victory ceremony was a blur of lights, sounds, and the excited chatter of thousands of aliens. Blue stood on the winner's podium, holding the championship trophy that gleamed under the station's bright lights. The alien skin was shifting through colors so rapidly that the holographic cameras had trouble keeping up. Jack watched from his spot in the maintenance bay, surrounded by diagnostic equipment and tools. He preferred it here, among the machines and engines he understood so well. The real celebration, for him, wasn't in the crowds or the ceremony. It was in the perfect readings still showing on his monitors. Unprecedented. The race announcer's voice boomed through the station. The largest victory margin in Galactic Grand Prix history. Blue's ship not only won but finished 3 full minutes ahead of the second-place competitor. The maintenance bay's door slid open, and a group of racing officials entered. Their expressions ranged from suspicious to amazed. Behind them came representatives from other racing teams, their eyes fixed on Blue's ship with obvious desire. "Mr. Thompson," one official said, his translator struggling to maintain a neutral tone, "we need to discuss the modifications to this vessel." Jack smiled and pulled up the ship's schematics on the main display. "Everything's within regulation specs," he said, bringing up the carefully prepared documentation. "Feel free to check every system. You'll find it all meets the official requirements." The officials huddled around the displays, their scanning devices working overtime. Jack could see the confusion on their faces as they tried to understand how an older model ship had outperformed the newest racing vessels in the galaxy. "But these power readings during the race," one official muttered, "they should be impossible with standard safety protocols." "Should they?" Jack asked innocently. "Or did you just assume they were impossible because nobody tried to find out what the real limits were?" More aliens were entering the bay now. Engineers, mechanics, and representatives from major racing teams. Jack could already see them taking notes, trying to understand what he'd done. But understanding the modifications wasn't enough. You needed to understand why they worked, and that required something unique to humans, the ability to push boundaries while knowing exactly when to stop. Blue arrived, still holding the trophy. The alien skin had settled into a deep, satisfied blue color. "They're offering contracts," Blue told Jack. "Every major racing team wants you as their engineer." Jack looked at the gathering crowd of aliens, all eager to learn his secrets. He thought about his grandfather's workshop back on Earth, about learning to listen to machines and understand their language. These aliens had built incredible technology, but they'd forgotten how to really communicate with it. "The modifications aren't the real secret," Jack said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "The secret is understanding that machines aren't just equations and specifications. They're like living things. They have personalities, limits, and potential. You have to listen to them, feel what they're trying to tell you." He walked over to the ship and placed his hand on its hull, feeling the slight vibration of its systems. "Humans didn't survive on our Deathworld by following manuals. We survived by understanding our tools, pushing them to their limits, and knowing exactly how far we could go before something broke." The aliens watched in silence as Jack pulled up more detailed readings. "Every modification I made was technically within your rules. I just found the spaces between the lines, the potential that was always there but nobody thought to look for." Blue's antenna twitched with amusement. "You taught my ship to sing a new song." "A human song," Jack agreed. "About speed and power and finding out what's really possible." He turned to face the gathering of racing officials and team representatives. "Now, who wants to learn how to make their ships sing too?" The maintenance bay erupted in a chaos of voices as everyone tried to speak at once. Jack smiled, knowing that racing would never be the same after today. He had shown the galaxy what happened when human ingenuity met alien technology, and this was just the beginning. Sometimes, he thought, it took a Deathworlder to show the galaxy that the impossible was just another word for hasn't been tried yet. And if there was one thing humans were good at, it was trying the impossible and making it work. Blue looked at the trophy, then at the ship, then at Jack. What happens next? Jack grinned. Next? Next we show them that today wasn't a fluke. And then he patted the ship's hull affectionately. Then we show them what this baby can really do when we stop holding back. The future was going to be very interesting indeed.